A decent hydrangea from a nursery runs $30 to $60. You only need one plant to end up with as many as you want, completely free. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which cutting to take, exactly what to root it in, a second method that works even better for some varieties, and exactly which mistakes quietly kill most people's attempts before they ever get the chance to work. If that sounds like the kind of thing you want every week, straightforward gardening advice with no filler, subscribe right now, because that's genuinely the whole point of this channel. Here's the mistake almost everyone makes first, and it's the one that looks like it's working right up until it isn't. Put a hydrangea cutting in a glass of water on your windowsill, and you'll see roots within a couple of weeks. It feels like success. It isn't. Roots that form in water grow with zero physical resistance around them. They come out thin, fragile, missing the fine root hairs a plant needs to actually take up water and nutrients, and poorly connected to the stem. The moment you move that cutting into soil, dense soil particles crush those delicate water roots, and the shift in moisture pressure often kills them outright, right when the plant should be settling in. A cutting rooted directly in a solid medium instead grows tougher roots from the start, already built for the environment they're going into. Skip the glass of water, no matter how satisfying it feels watching roots appear fast. It sets the cutting up to fail right when you've already invested weeks of patience into it. So if water is off the table, what actually works? It starts with choosing the right stem, and this is where a lot of people set themselves up to fail before they've even planted anything. Stems move through 3 stages as they mature. Early on, soft green growth, softwood, too fragile for this. As summer moves along, the base firms up and starts turning slightly brown while staying flexible up top, semi-hardwood, exactly what you want right now. Later, once the plant goes dormant, hardwood, a different technique entirely. For late summer, semi-hardwood is the sweet spot. Cut a stem 4 to 6 inches long, from a healthy shoot with no flowers on it, since a flowering stem is spending its energy on blooms instead of roots. Make a clean, angled cut about ½ inch below a leaf node, that joint where a leaf meets the stem, since that's exactly where the plant's rooting hormones concentrate, and the angle exposes more of that tissue to actually take root. Take your cutting early morning if you can, while the stem is still hydrated from the cool overnight air. Better results than cutting in the heat of the afternoon, when the plant is already under some stress and less turgid. Strip the leaves off the bottom couple of nodes entirely, so nothing's buried and rotting underground. Trim the larger remaining leaves roughly in half. It feels brutal, cutting a healthy leaf on purpose, but a cutting has no roots yet to replace what it loses through those leaves. Less leaf, less water lost, less risk of wilting before it ever gets the chance to root. One thing worth mentioning here, since not every hydrangea behaves the same way. Big leaf hydrangeas, the classic mophead type, root reasonably well from this kind of cutting, but tend to be more prone to wilting fast if you're not careful with humidity. Panicle hydrangeas are tougher and more forgiving overall, less fussy about conditions. Oakleaf hydrangeas are genuinely the hardest of the bunch to root from a summer cutting like this. They're prone to rotting more than the others, and if you're working with an oakleaf specifically, know going in that your success rate will likely be lower no matter how carefully you follow every step. Even with the perfect cutting in hand, one wrong choice at this next step can undo everything you just did. The medium you root it in matters more than most people realize. Compost or garden soil feels like the obvious choice, rich, dark, full of nutrients. It's the wrong one. Rich soil holds too much water and compacts under its own weight, starving developing roots of the oxygen they need, and creating exactly the damp, airless conditions that invite rot at the base of the stem. What you want instead is a mix that balances moisture with real airflow, equal parts coarse sand, peat moss or coco coir, and perlite. That combination holds enough water to keep the cutting alive while leaving space for air to reach the roots as they form. Bury at least 1, ideally 2 of those leaf nodes below the surface, since that's exactly where new roots emerge from. Here's a detail almost nobody talks about, and it costs nothing. Fresh willow twigs genuinely contain natural plant hormones, the same category of compounds sold as rooting powder at the garden center. Chop a handful of fresh willow twigs, pack them into a jar, cover with water, and let steep for a day or 2, or pour boiling water over them and steep closer to a full day for a faster batch. Soak the base of your cutting in that willow water for a few hours or overnight before planting. It's held up well against commercial rooting products in real comparisons, and it keeps for a couple of months in the fridge if you make extra, so it's worth making a full batch, even if you've only got 1 or 2 cuttings ready right now. While we're clearing up free tricks, one that gets passed around online constantly does not work at all. Sticking a cutting into a raw potato before planting, the theory being it slowly feeds moisture to the cutting. It doesn't. A potato's dense, starchy flesh blocks oxygen from reaching the base of the cutting, the opposite of what a rooting stem needs. More often than not, that damp, starchy environment just rots the cutting from the bottom up, while the potato starts sprouting on its own and pulling resources away from what you actually planted it for. Skip it entirely, no matter how often it shows up in your feed looking convincing. If this kind of detail is already saving you money and saving you from wasting weeks on a cutting that was doomed from the start, that's exactly why you should be subscribed. We go this deep every single week, not just surface level tips you've already heard a dozen times. You've done everything right so far. This next part is where a lot of people still lose the cutting anyway. Cover the pot with a clear plastic bag or a small clear container to hold humidity, using a couple of small sticks to keep the plastic off the leaves. Every few days, open it for about 10 minutes to let fresh air in and cut down mold risk, then seal it back up. Keep the pot somewhere bright but genuinely out of direct sun. Next to a wall or under light dappled shade works well. Direct sunlight on a rootless cutting will wilt it before it ever gets a real chance. Keep the medium consistently moist, never bone dry, never standing in water either. Or you're right back to the same rot risk. After a couple to a few weeks, check progress with a gentle tug test. Real resistance means roots have formed and are holding the cutting in place. Now, if cuttings feel a little too fiddly for you, or if you've got a variety that's genuinely stubborn about rooting from a cut stem, there's a second method worth knowing, and honestly it's the most reliable one there is. It's called layering, and the trick is the new plant never actually gets separated from the parent until it's already grown its own roots, so there's no risky transition period at all. Water the parent plant thoroughly the night before. Find a flexible, low-growing branch, roughly a foot long, and about a foot back from the tip. Strip the leaves along a short section of it. Make a shallow cut along the underside of that stripped section, right through a leaf bud, and prop it open slightly with a tiny splint of wood, so it stays exposed to air rather than healing straight back over. Dig a shallow trench directly beneath that spot in the branch, lower the wounded section into it, pin it down with a bent piece of wire, so it stays in contact with the soil, and backfill loosely. Weigh it down with a stone if it wants to spring back up, and stake the very tip of the branch upright so it keeps growing normally above ground. Because that branch is still attached to and fed by the parent plant the whole time, it's under essentially no stress while it roots, which is exactly why layering tends to succeed even on varieties that are genuinely difficult to root from a cut stem. It just takes patience, generally a full season, sometimes into the following year, before there's enough root growth to safely cut it free. Once you do sever it, leave the newly rooted section undisturbed in the ground for a couple more weeks before digging it up, so it can adjust to supporting itself before you move it anywhere. Whichever method you use, once your cutting has rooted, don't rush it straight into full sun and open air. It doesn't have the protective leaf layer a mature plant has built up, and it'll dry out fast if you push it too soon. Move it somewhere sheltered first. Gradually give it more light and less humidity cover each day over a week or two, until it's ready to be treated like any other established plant. There's one more stretch after that worth knowing about, since a lot of people do everything right through rooting, and then lose the plant over its first winter anyway. A newly rooted cutting has a young, shallow root system that isn't ready to handle a hard freeze the way an established shrub is. If you're in a colder climate, the simplest fix is sinking the pot itself into the ground somewhere sheltered, right up to the rim, and once the ground freezes, covering it with several inches of loose leaves or straw for insulation. If you'd rather keep it in a container indoors, an unheated garage or shed works well, cool enough to keep the plant properly dormant, but protected from harsh winter wind. Either way, water it lightly every couple of weeks through winter, so it doesn't dry out completely while it's sitting dormant. One quick thing before you start handing out free hydrangeas to everyone you know. Many modern varieties are patent protected for up to 20 years, which technically makes propagating them, even for yourself, off limits under that patent. Nobody's coming after home gardeners over a single cutting in practice, but check the tag if you want to be fully in the clear. Patent applied for, a patent number, or propagation prohibited means it's protected. Anything older than 20 years is already free and legal to propagate and share. So here's everything you need. Semi-hardwood cutting late summer, soft on top, firm at the base. Cut just below a leaf node, strip the lower leaves, trim the rest in half. Root in sand, peat and perlite, never plain water, never rich compost. Boost it with free willow water instead of buying rooting hormone. If a variety is fighting you every step of the way, try layering it directly on the parent plant instead. Keep it humid and shaded while it establishes. Check for roots with a gentle tug after a few weeks, and give it real winter protection its first year before treating it like a fully established plant. Let me know in the comments which hydrangea you're hopping to multiply, and where you're gardening from. I read every single one. If this just saved you $30 or $60 you were about to spend on a single plant, hit subscribe. because we do exactly this kind of practical, save you money gardening content every single week. I'll see you in the next one.